Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Makerspace with Meet the Maker. I hope you guys are having a fantastic day. Let's say hi real quick to everybody who's here. Marco, Chris Warris, what's going on? Robert Feely, Sean Field, Tim B. I hope you're doing all right, Tim B. I know you're struggling a little bit there. I hope you're doing okay and turning the corner on everything. Sean Field, what is going on? So, Joseph S., what's going on, man? Welcome. So, I want to get into it. We got a special guest today. This is another maker that I have gotten to know over the couple of years. His name is Evan Martin with E. Martin Knives. You can check him out on Instagram. What happened to my banner? We got to put the banner on. Oh my goodness. Hold on. I got to put this banner. There we go. There. And yep, there we go. Got the banner going. All right. Caleb, what's going on? Caleb 1776, what is going on? So we got that going on. All right. So without further ado, let me introduce you guys to Evan Martin with E. Martin Knives. What's going on, man?
What's up, man?
Thanks for doing this. This is cool. We're just going to hang out for the next little bit, talk knives, get to know you a little bit. I've been wanting to get you on because I want to introduce you to the knife community here on YouTube. They are pretty stinking amazing and pretty supportive. And your work, which they will see here in a minute. Rolf, what's going on? Is amazing. I've always admired your work. I guess for everybody, the first time that we met was at the Gator Cutlery Show. I saw your table and I was handling some of your stuff, and then we got to chatting afterwards on like Instagram and some other things. And then you helped me with some of my making stuff and giving me little tips and tricks and doing that, which thank you very much for doing that. And that's one thing about the knife making community is just everybody's so helpful.
Absolutely. It's one of the things where everybody is willing to share their secrets to a point.
To a point.
Yeah.
This is true.
I've met some, they're questionable, but for the most part, most of us are absolutely willing to let you know anything we're doing.
Oh yeah. If once you have earned the trust and you see some of the work and you see people have their heart in the right place, then I think that's probably the key.
Yeah.
If once they pass that test, then you're more than willing to give all the critiques and the help that you need. So you've helped me a lot in the beginning when I was just getting started, from somebody who didn't really have like a mentor that I worked under and went to their shop and worked with, etc. I just kind of used YouTube and used you guys and just kind of figured it out on my own, and came up with my own unique way of doing things, which there's no right or wrong, but it seems to be working.
I wouldn't be here unless there were other people like me who would share their secrets. It's just what you do in the knife community. So
yeah. So let's go ahead. Thanks, Tim B, for sharing that link, man. That's very helpful. They're sharing E. Martin Knives on Instagram with everybody. So thank you, Tim B, master moderator, helping me out. Kathleen, what's going on? Moderator and channel member. So speaking of that, you told me backstage that you had been doing this for 20 years.
Give or take, yeah.
Which kind of floored me. I didn't know you had been doing it this long. I mean, it obviously shows in your work, which we'll get a chance to see. But what got you started into knife making? How did you get started into this?
So I worked at a taxidermy for, I'd say, over 10 years. Right out of high school, when I was like 16, 17, I would go over and I just wanted, I grew up hunting and fishing, and I wanted to, see all the different deer this guy had. He literally worked across the street from me. His dad actually started Popeyes. He was the first investor in Popeyes.
Really? Okay.
And his son just, it was one of those serendipitous things where he caught a guy hunting on his property, and caught the guy when he was like 17, and threatened to call the game warden and this and that. And the guy's like, man, I'll mount that turkey for you if you'll let me go. And he went and toured the guy's shop and hung out with him and became a taxidermist himself. And so I'm across the street where I grew up, and he was like, if you're gonna hang around, pick up that broom and start sweeping. So I started sweeping the shop just that way I could hang out. And so I worked for him like 10 years. Well, one Christmas he gave me a knife as like a Christmas bonus once I started working for him.
That's awesome.
And it was a Heli or Hella, however you pronounce it. It was a Scandinavian knife. And I wanted to get one for my brother, and so this was before YouTube.
Okay. Yeah.
Amazon Amazon was just selling books. So I just started like Google searching and found this little company in New York that sold that particular knife. And so ordered one from a brother, and they also sold like blades, like Scandinavian style blades and different stuff, because he did like a lot of rendezvous stuff, trapper stuff. And so I literally read like a little tutorial on how to assemble a handle for it, and
yeah,
I was like, what heck, I can do that.
Were they blanks? Like
they were just complete blades. They weren't even, they were complete Scandinavian blades.
Okay.
So I ordered a couple when I ordered my brother's knife, and put a handle on one and put a handle on another. And the next Monday I show up at work. I want to show my blade off to my boss, and one of our customers walks in, and he's like, "That's really cool. I want one." I'm like, cool. All right, I'll make you one. And then 2 days later, he calls me. He's like, "Hey, I need another one."
That's awesome.
Okay. Well, now he's still my best customer.
That's great.
He's I love him to death. He's a good friend, and he's still my best customer. However many years later. And that's just kind of the way it started. And then I ran into I just happened to be on Blade forums, and found out there was a hammer in close to me with a Master Smith, which is Terry Vendevender in Mississippi. And so I went to the hammer in, and I met a guy named Donovan Phillips, and he kind of took a liking to me, and he's like, "Come over to my shop and let me show you a thing or two." And from there, it just kind of spiraled into what it is today.
So what was his name that was kind of like your mentor that brought you in?
Donovan Phillips.
Donovan Phillips. And that was all when you were in Mississippi?
Yep.
So that's awesome.
That
just spiraled. And were you doing forging?
At that point, I was literally making file knives at that point.
Okay.
Like I was throwing files into campfires or in the fireplace and softening them up and grinding them and putting handles. And he told me, and he called me like 2 or 3 days later, and he's like, "Hey, I really meant like you need to come over and see what I'm doing." And now he's the president of Blade Forums, or not Blade Forums, Blade Sports.
Okay.
Which awesome. Is he got into Blade Sports. And
yeah, because I know, and we can talk in because you've done some of that as well.
Yeah.
And I've seen some of your competition blades, which are scary and ridiculous, but we could talk about them. It's pretty stinking cool. So we were chatting, and I have a story for you because it's kind of funny. And I've told this story on the channel before and shared it because, I'm fairly new at the making side of things, maybe 4.5 years. And so you were generous enough to invite me over for a barbecue and a meeting. And I jumped at the chance because I get to hang around other people that are either makers or within the knife community that you were friends with. And I was like,
Right.
This is so cool because one of the things that I'm always looking for is somebody to get together and talk knives because there's just nothing in my area. So
Yeah.
I went over and we're hanging out, and you had warned me. You were like, hey, bring some knives. There's going to be some heavy hitter knife makers here. So you can share your work. And I was kind of like, sure. Okay. So I brought some stuff with me, and I'm sitting there chatting, and I come in and I sit down, just chatting with everybody, just getting to know everybody. I didn't know anybody's name. And I was pretty ignorant to the people that were there. I didn't really recognize anybody or knew anybody. And, at one point we all start taking on knives out, start showing them around. I'm sharing my knife with the person sitting next to me, whatever. And he pulls out something out of his pocket, and he's like, yeah, I made this a while ago, and it's this folder. And he hands it to me, and I open the blade up, and it said Foltz. And I was like, what? Wait a minute. You're Alan Foltz. And he's like, I had no idea. I was sitting there for a couple hours.
I guess so.
Chatting with him. And what's funny is that was my gateway knife into small fixed blades.
Right.
Was the Minimalist. And then I'm sitting next to him, and it was just like such a small world. And then he's sitting there holding one of my knives, and I'm like, what am I doing here? It was just
kind of pick it apart and tell me all the things I'm doing wrong.
Yeah, well, which is fine. And he was kind enough to not do that, which is very kind of him. But it was just what?
He would do that if you ask him. I'm
sure he would. And if I asked him, he would, and that's fine. I'm open to criticism. It's a funny story because I had no idea that I was sitting next to him, and then I got to meet Big Chris and some of the other guys that were there. So it was a really cool event, and I got to meet a bunch of really cool players. And Alan invited me over. Hey, come hang out. I'll show you how to make some stuff. He saw that I was a maker, and he wanted to help out. And I've never taken him out on it.
Alan is one of those guys where he loves the process, and he'll help anybody out. Like, he's the one that taught me how to make folders.
Yep. I was going to ask you that.
Salt of the earth. He's as nice as they come, and a lot of people are intimidated by him because he's Alan Foltz, and he's just a good dude. There's no way around it.
Yep. He has opinions, and he has, he doesn't mind saying what's on his mind, which absolutely. But good guy, was willing to help me, wanted me to come over. And I'm like, I just haven't taken him up on that. Every once in a while, I'll reach out to him. At the Gator Cutlery Show this year, he was there, and I went up and we made eye contact, and I thought he recognized me. I went up, shook his hand, but I don't think he recognized me, which is fine. He's only met me that one time. So
maybe we need to go over there together.
Yeah, I would love to go hang out in his shop and learn a couple things. Like, people ask me all the time, would you ever make a folder? And I'm like, yes, I would love that, but I understand all the things that are involved, and that's a completely different. There's a completely different skill set.
Yeah. Well, and one of the things when I started talking to Alan, he's like, "What kind of grinder you got?" And I told him, "Oh, I've got a KMG," and he's like, "Okay, you can come make a knife now."
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I told him I had a 1x30, and he was like, "What?" And
yeah,
I've
well,
upgraded. I have upgraded. I have a 2x42 now. I've upgraded.
So when I first started making knives, before I hung out with Donovan and got kind of a crash course in what I should be doing, which there's another story there about Warren Osborne I need to tell.
Oh, okay.
When I was talking to Terry Vandeventer, who was the one that was that's hosted the Hammer In that I went and met Donovan with. One of the things he asked me was like, "Well, what kind of grinder you have?" And I was like, "A 1x30." And he's like, "Really?" I'm like, "Yeah, I burn up like 3 of them trying to make knives." He's like, "Wow, you really want to make knives, don't you?"
Yeah.
And that's a very PG way he put it. But
yeah.
He was like, "Wow, you really want to? How many have you made?" I'm like, 100. And he's like, "You really want to make knives, don't you?" Because for the first year or so, I was making saw blade knives or saw blade steel. Got a big chunk of steel, like 90,000 and 20 saw blade steel, and I made probably 100 knives on 1x30. Or I'll say 3 1x30s because I burn up like 2 of them. And he was like, "You really want to make knives, don't you?" Like, "Yeah, I'd like to."
Yeah, that was me. I don't know. I don't know how many blades I made on my little 1x30. I only had one. I didn't burn it. I only didn't burn it out, but I had one.
Well, I was lucky. I did. I got a bunch of blades ready for we call it the Mississippi Wildlife Extravaganza. So me and a couple buddies bought a table, and we split it 3 ways. So I had a buddy that did wildlife photography, and he had a piece of the table, and I had my cousin who did turkey calls. And so he had a table. So basically we had a table of knives, a table of turkey calls, and the back wall was wildlife photography. And it's the biggest show where I grew up in Mississippi was the extravaganza. And my cousin sold a lot of turkey calls, and my buddy sold a few pieces on the back wall. And I sold like 2 knives, and I'd prepped maybe 20 knives for it. And then, this was back in the time where Blade Forums was really big.
Yeah.
And so I jumped on Blade Forums the next day because I had a bunch of knives ready and bought a maker's membership for like $30 or something. That way, post knives for sale, and I posted a bunch of knives, and I had a guy in Singapore reach out to me. His name's Sesh, and shout out to him if he ever sees this. But he reached out to me, and he's like, I like this one, I like that one. He's like, matter of fact, what do you have? So I sent him all the pictures of everything I had, and he was like, I'll take this one, this one, this. He ended up buying like 10 knives from me.
That's awesome.
And it turns out he's like a big collector. He runs a company similar to like Blackwater, so he does a lot of private security.
Okay.
That the Asian rim there,
mm-hmm.
Singapore, all of that area.
Okay.
Um, he ended up buying like 10 or 12 knives from me, and it was enough where I could turn around and buy, a KMG from Beaumont. And I never looked back from there. I just kept making knives as long as I could.
Yeah. So I'm on because I have very limited space, and I upgraded to a Grizzly 2x42.
All right.
And I updated the table and the platen because whatever you get with that is just garbage. Yeah. But I upgraded all those things, so we did all that. Tim B, thanks for dropping that. Evan Martin's Squarespace. Tim will find all your information and share it. I hope you don't mind.
Thank you.
He did ask a question, and I'm sure we'll get into it. But he said, "What would a custom fixed blade typically cost, and steels that you prefer to work with?"
Okay. My typical baseline fixed blade, like hunter size is about $275. I prefer CPM 154. I use a lot of CPM 154. I use a lot of S35 VN. I like it a little better than the S30 V. My favorite steel is probably M4.
I hear that a lot. M4.
It is the knife maker steel.
Really?
I'll put it this way. So, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Because I want to hear why. Because I might have to start working with it. I've heard so many good things about
it. Like I said before, I was a taxidermist beforehand, and then I got to hanging out with Donovan, who is Mr. M4. Which remind me to go back to the Warren Osborne story from that.
Yeah, Warren. I got a note.
Runs, and he's the one that taught me how to grind and heat treat M4. And I was able to grind and heat treat an M4 blade, and I ground it to 7/1000ths pre-heat treat basically, and then hand sanded it from there.
Okay.
So the edge had a 7/1000ths edge on it before I sharpened it. And there was less than 1/1000th difference in the entire edge. It was a 5-inch blade.
Wow.
Granted, I grew up hunting and fishing. I worked at a taxidermy for 10 years. I cleaned, I think, about 5 deer with it, and then a 900-ish pound alligator.
Jeez.
Before I touch it up.
Oh no! Wow.
It held an edge that well for that long.
Jeez.
And I don't like I was part of cleaning the 900-pound alligator. I did it by myself at the taxidermy.
And that's like really thick skin and
it's ridiculous.
And bones and everything else. That's crazy. And it's so M4, because of the edge retention and the hardness that you can get out of it, that's basically why.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Because that was my question. Is people ask me, what's your favorite steel to work with? And I'm like, that's kind of difficult for me to say, because I obviously haven't worked with all of these steels. I've worked with a handful of different ones, but they all work fairly similar, but it's a matter of your performance and heat treating and everything else that's 100%. Where your difference is going to be. Kathleen asked a question: how long does it take for you to make each knife?
It really depends on the knife. Like a standard hunter, and I got a pile here. It's like a 4-inch hunter like this. Maybe 6 hours, not including time in the oven. I got probably, let's say, an hour of high temp Ow, I hit my nose with that.
Yeah, don't hit your nose with that, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, hold it up. Everybody can see it. There you go. That thing is so clean.
Yeah.
So clean.
Just it's very bare bones, simple. It's got a crazy handle on it, but that's
That's
just
just one piece material. So
it's nothing crazy. It's actually a piece of micarta somebody gave me at Blade Show a couple years.
Is it like the GI Hansen or GL Hansen stuff?
It's very similar. It's another company that is doing something similar.
Okay.
But this one's I believe S45VN.
Okay. Very cool. That's awesome.
For me, 4-inch blade, I think a 4 1/4-inch blade. Simple handle. Nothing crazy, but that's maybe 6 hours, not including oven time, because that's another 5 hours or so.
Well, yeah, the heat treating of that's going to take a lot of time.
And usually, with a knife, I'm doing, several at a time. I'm doing at least 4 at a time.
Yeah, so I get that question all the time. How long does it take you? And I'm like, that's so hard because I'm not hardly ever working on one at a time.
Right. And then you have stuff where you're doing, different handles like this one.
Hold on. Let me make you big. There you are. Yeah, show that thing off.
This is a Kumai blade with a nitro core.
What?
Nitro core. And then you have copper and you have stainless Damascus. And the handle is a marble carbon fiber with mammoth ivory handles.
That thing is really cool. I love the size. I like the smaller stuff. I love the size of that.
I love the small stuff.
Yeah.
I love making these little knives. I carry them every day when I'm not. Well, we've talked before about our work life and not being able to carry stuff.
Yeah. I mean, and you don't have to get into it, but there are times where you just aren't supposed to be carrying a knife or should be carrying a knife, and you maybe have it in a bag or something, but a small little fixed blade on you is always a good thing to have.
Yeah, so. Absolutely. And that's one of those things I've talked to my my person who is supposed to have that stuff with him at work, and I'm like, just so you know, if you see me in the hall when something goes down,
let me know. I got you.
I'm taking care of things.
I got you. Tim B said he likes the look of the bird and trout model you have on your Instagram.
Bird and trout. I don't have anything right now to show about that, but yeah,
I can pull up your Instagram and see what we're talking about.
It's probably going to be deep.
It's going to be deep. You got all these. Look at that, guys. I hope you don't mind me showing off.
Absolutely.
See now, look, guys, that's a folder. Are you kidding me? It looks better than some of the production stuff that we have seen as of late.
Oh, but look at the croissants. Croissants, man.
All right, Tim, I don't know where that one is. That must be really deep in there.
It's down there deep. I have something similar. I feel like I just saw the pattern, which kind of gets me into my design.
Yeah. So before we talk about that, you wanted to talk about Warren. So
Yes.
what's this? What do you want to say about Warren?
So I'm sure a lot of people know, if they like Benchmades, they've seen the 940 that Warren designed.
Okay.
So
The
when I
Warren.
got into blade sports, so Donovan kind of took me under his wing and showed me kind of how things were done. And he got me into blade sports, which is the cutting competitions, which I'm sure everybody's seen. And so he's like, all right, we're going to our first competition. And so Donovan's sponsored by Spyderco.
Sponsored by Spyderco, but he made one for Benchmade.
No, Warren made knives for Benchmade.
Oh, okay, never mind. Sorry.
Donovan, so Blade Sports as itself has multiple sponsors.
Okay.
Benchmade, Spyderco, Peters Heat Treat. If y'all need anything done by Peters Heat Treat, they are the man.
Okay, is that who you use to do heat treating, or because I use them for heat treating?
I do everything in house, except for my bigger stuff, and then I send it out to Brad at Peters. Brad is the reason Peters Heat Treat has a blade division.
Because of Brad.
Brad is the man when it comes to heat treat. Yeah,
I send all of them. Because I can't do anything with stainless. I don't even have an oven, but I send all of my stainless or anything that I can't do in house that's not a carbon steel. I send it out to Peters for heat treating. And I've shopped around other places, and I trust that it's going to get done at Peters. And I've never had an issue.
I've been to the facility. I've hung out with Brad more than I probably should have.
We won't tell. There's no telling here. We won't tell.
He is such a fantastic person. He is so unbelievably knowledgeable. He can talk over my head so fast that I sit there in awe of him. If you're making knives and you can't heat treat yourself in-house, send it to Peters. And that's not, they don't pay me to say that. He's just a friend, and I know he's going to take care of me.
Yeah. And I don't mind spending a little extra money to get it done, because I know it's going to get done right. They send me their little slips indicating what the hardness is that I have asked for. They always nail it. And I always make a copy of that, and I give it to the person who bought that knife too. So they have a copy of the Peters Heat Treat signature because HRCs are important now to everybody. But
no, 100%. Every blade that leaves there is tested, and
yep.
Gonna be
they test it. You can see where they tested it, because they always leave the little divot, which is fine. It always gets covered up, so I don't really care. But
and so I have a 22.5-inch oven. If I can get about 24 inches in it, kind of diagonally.
Yeah.
If it's above that, I send it to Peters.
So you have an even heat?
Yeah, I have even heat. I don't know the model name now, but it's a 22-inch.
Yeah.
It's the newer knife maker heat treat, so it only has the elements on the sides.
Yeah.
And it's fantastic. I mean, you've seen it.
I have. I drooled. One day I'll get that. It's for me, because I look at that and I'm like, okay. And I look around my shop and I'm like, where can I put that if I was to ever be able to pull the trigger? Its space is so limited. And then people are like, you should be able to do it. And I'm like, you have to understand, you just don't go out and buy an even heat and be like, okay, I can heat treat everything now. It's not that simple. There's other things you have to do.
Well, the good thing is when you buy an even heat, you got about 6 to 8 weeks to figure it out before it actually shows up. Oh,
Because there's more to it. Because yeah, there's the even heat that at least will heat up your blade. But then, what are we doing? Plate quenching? Are you doing other different types of quenching? What are all the supplies you need to do it properly? Are you foil wrapping? Are you, and then you have to temper afterwards. So are you cryo? Are you doing the dry ice and the alcohol? Are you
yeah.
there's all these other
So many,
things that come with it that you have
so
to
many variables.
figure out. So
So back to Warren though.
yeah,
So I meet up with Donovan, and he basically convinces me to do blade sports. I'm like, okay, cool. I'm a competition knife, and he's like, yeah, we're going to our first competition. I'm like, all right, let's go. And the first competition is at Warren Osborne's house.
no pressure.
Not even qualified yet to cut because we have to do a safety. There has to be several people there to do a safety kind of check to make sure you're not gonna hurt yourself while you do this competition.
Yeah.
So my safety check is my mentor Donovan and Warren Osborne at Warren's house.
That's crazy. No pressure.
So, we're I'm doing these different things that Donovan's already showed me how to do, and Warren's sitting here looking at Donovan like, did you show him that? Because he's not doing that right. And
was that your first competition?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
at Warren's house. My first competition's at Warren Osborne's in his backyard at his horse barn.
That's
And we're
great.
in the yard like swinging blades, at 2x4s and golf balls. And at the time, I didn't really understand it.
That's great.
So my blade was not ready to cut. Like I could not cut the rope. I couldn't cut the 2-inch rope.
Oh no.
And he's looking at my blade and he's like, how'd you heat treat this? Because it was, one or oh crap, what was that first blade? 5160, I think.
Okay.
And he's like, what angle did you sharpen this at? And I'm like, I don't know. He's like, come in here. So I have Warren Osborne sharpening my competition knife.
That's great.
Shop. And I'm looking at all this stuff and I'm like, I am way above my head right now.
Yeah.
His wife comes out, his daughter comes out, they're all, happy to see everybody. And I'm like, this is a real maker.
Yeah, this is real.
And I'm shop and I'm fumbling around. I don't know what I'm doing. And like, I'm thinking, what kind of belt is this? Because I don't know.
Yeah. That's me. That was me. That was me going to your house, dude.
Well, I make $300 or $400 knives. He makes $30,000 to $40,000 knives.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
And so he sharpens my knife. We go out there. I'm able to cut the rope like it's butter. And so we do the competition. Like, I place like, I think I get a medal. I'm placed like third in my division or something. Nothing, draft. I think there was like 5 people in my division at that point. So I'm pumped, And then I finally figure out who Warren is, and I'm like, crap. Like,
so wait. You didn't know who he was. So it was like me and Alan. You just this guy is cool. And
like I knew who he was, but I didn't really understand how important he was.
Okay.
To the knife world.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Like I knew he worked with Benchmade, but I didn't realize he designed like their number one,
Yeah. And still,
and then designed like their number two folder. And I mean, eventually I learned, and I became friends with Warren, and I loved him to death until he passed. Like he's one of the nicest people you ever meet in your life.
that's crazy. That's crazy.
It's one of those things like when me and Donovan start talking about him, we start tearing up, and neither one of us are like the crying type. So we're just
but salted.
like let's subject.
Yeah. That's amazing. That's a cool story. I know you have some competition choppers, because I don't know if you're still doing are you still doing, there it is. This thing I know he's got it. Come on.
Yeah. It's actually Warren's design.
Yes.
I kind of modified it to fit my
your hand.
My
God,
The
that
thing-
thing is huge. How many?
I named it the Skunk Ape because I live in Florida now. So this is 300 thousandths.
I think that thing is. Holy cow! Look at that.
It's 300 thousandths M4. It's a Mortise and Tang full tang.
Okay.
So this rubber, I will brag on this one. This rubber is from Warren Osborne's horse barn.
What?
Last pieces of the fine grain horse stall mat.
Wow. That's
So-
awesome.
I used to carry this stuff, like you could buy like a 3x4 sheet of this for like $40, and it's cycle tire, but they've changed the grain pattern of it to a coarser pattern.
Yeah.
So this is some of the last of the fine grain, and I got this from Warren's Horse Barn.
That's crazy.
Um,
Man, hold that thing up again. And how many competitions has that been through?
So this has been through. This has only been through like maybe 3 or 4.
Only. Yeah, but what you're doing in those competitions is brutal.
Yeah, it's pretty ridiculous. This is one of the newer ones I've made. This is my newest one. Which is about time to retire. I haven't competed in over a year now.
Yeah. But man, that thing's a beast.
It's 1.8 or a pound, 8 ounces. And
Whoa.
the balance is about 2 1/4 inches from the handle.
Ah, man. But it's funny you're holding it like that. You can see how that blade comes down to nothing
There we go.
at the edge. And it started with such a thick spine to
So it
get
goes
down to nothing.
1,000 to about 15 thousandths.
That's crazy. That is crazy.
2 inches wide, 10 inches long blade, 15 inches overall.
M4.
M4. So the steel alone was over $100, and just the ceramic blade or ceramic belts to grind it were about 100.
Yeah, I was gonna say about that too, because you probably went through all those belts and they're like, okay, garbage, or the maybe used again pile, because throwing belts away, we know is like, I can't throw it away.
Yeah, I'm gonna put them over here and hope I use them one day pile.
Yeah, maybe I'll use it on some handle material or something.
Or profiling or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's me too. It's like
I hope I
see
handle and then use it on handle and you're like, crap, it's burning this.
Yes. we're trying to use the old belt on my Carta, and you're just like, what's going on? It's not doing anything. I smell burnt micarta.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that is a chunk of
100.
M4. All ground post. Now, Cosmin asked, was it all ground post heat treat?
Yep.
Wow.
Now a lot of the guys I learned from grind pre-heat treat, and when I started hanging out with Alan, I started grinding post-heat treat. For most things, I can't tell the difference grinding pre-heat treat or post-heat treat. Using the ceramic belts we have now, it's not that big of a difference.
Yeah.
I would rather grind 90% of the things I do after heat treat, especially folders, than grind them pre-heat treat.
Yeah. That's what I've heard. I do my grinding pre, and most of that is just because I'm so paranoid that post heat treat, I'm going to ruin the heat treat. Like I'm going to end up burning the blade up, and then I'm going to ruin it. That's my paranoia setting in with doing it post heat or pre heat treat.
So as far as what I do, I would rather it be nice and flat after heat treat. And when I get down to where, like after 120 grit, I'm not using a push stick anymore in the grinder. I'm using my fingers.
Yeah.
It's too hot for my fingers. If it gets too hot for my fingers, it's way before it's going to get too hot for my blade.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the way I judge it. If it's getting too hot and I can't hold it anymore, it's time to cool it off.
Yeah.
And it's worked out well. I've had a few mistakes, but nothing compared to the warping I would get from grinding it before heat treat.
Yeah, I haven't run into a lot of warping, just a handful of things that have warped, but also I'm not dealing with long stretched out blades. I'm doing a lot of smaller stuff. So
a lot of EDC size.
Yeah, like all of my small stuff. And I've started doing some more belt satin finishes, which I'm not terribly good at. But, I'm doing it post. I did it with this one. I just finished this one up this weekend. But I did that, the belt satin finish on that.
Yeah.
But I did go to the grinder after heat treat. This is 80 CRV2. So I was able to heat treat that myself. And I did go to the grinder, but it was all with my hands. I didn't use a push stick. I didn't use anything. So I was always able to make sure it wasn't getting too hot to ruin my heat treat. But it's just like my little paranoia of doing that. And yes, guys, this is the new Thistle. So this is a new design that I just kind of finished up. But this is called the Thistle. My first little clip point Bowie kind of design that I thrown around.
Oh, that reminds me. I have a few pocket buoys left.
Ooh, yeah. As U.S. makers, will you be penalized by the tariffs because of equipment you can source from the U.S.? Good question, Kathleen. I don't know.
It's yet to be seen.
Yeah, it's still too early, and I'm hoping they work all of this out because it's just crazy.
Yeah,
it's crazy the stuff that they're doing. But yeah. So you were doing fixed blades first, I'm assuming, and you're just doing small little. Were you doing larger, like hunter size fixed blades and doing that?
I started doing hunters first.
Yeah.
And then I grew up in Mississippi, and that's 90% of what I dealt with was people that hunt.
hunting knives. Like that.
Yeah. Like 4-inch hunters were my bread and butter for so long. And then I moved to Florida. And I started wearing shorts every day.
Welcome to Florida.
and now, working at PE, I'm
Wearing shorts every day.
wear a t-shirt every day.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's funny they talk about wearing jeans on Friday. I'm like, you want me to dress up?
You just keep wearing the same thing you've been wearing.
Exactly. So, when I moved to Florida, I learned what an EDC was.
Yeah.
And that I would prefer to carry a small, 2 to 3 inch blade and a pair of gym shorts or cargo shorts, like most people in Florida.
That's my wheelhouse. That's my wheelhouse. A small little thing. All right, now come on, let's show off. Come on,
pocket boot.
There you go. That's a nice
That
little
was
thing.
CPM 154. This is some oh crap. It's a shredded carbon fiber with copper.
Okay, so it's the copper shredded, and is that the vintage butterscotch? Yep, the
With some
vintage
black-
like copper. Yeah,
Or no,
awesome.
that's natural liners.
Natural liners. Okay, man, look at that.
Barrel
Gosh.
teeth.
Yep, got the Kydex.
Super simple.
Super simple. That's what I like. Nothing crazy.
It fits.
Something nice and small.
Yep.
It fits in your hand. I do a lanyard on mine just for the pinky.
Yep.
But yep.
I don't mind the lanyard at all. I don't think I put. There's probably a lanyard hold under this, and I just didn't put it there.
But do you need it? You look like you got your whole hand on it.
I mean, it's
Oh, okay. Kind of. Yeah.
because it has this little bit of slope to the back. It kind of fits my pinky just right.
Yeah. Because for me, I want a knife that I can carry. I can forget about I'm carrying it because I like to carry on my belt horizontal, which is why I always have the loops on all of my finger blades.
All the dot loops, they're fantastic.
Yeah, they're amazing loops. So easy, versatile, but I can carry that, and it's on my belt right in the front. And I'm a pool technician, so I'm making 20 stops a day, kneeling down, squatting, moving around. I don't want anything poking me, but if I need to cut open something, then boom, it's right there. I got my knife. I can cut it open. I don't need anything bigger than that on a daily basis.
Oh yeah.
And then, this is a design I can pretty much get all 4 fingers on a nice thin handle. But, for me, that's my wheelhouse. In my everyday world, and I preach it up and down, something like that big just doesn't really fit into.
It doesn't compute for 90% of people.
No, if you are a hunter, if you're camping, if you're doing something outdoors and you're doing, obviously you're going to grab this and you're going to have a nice tool to assist with all of these things. This is and I'm going to show off this because this is a Pickled Steel Impala Hunter. And this is from Pickled Steel. They're out of South Africa. It's a knife company out of South Africa that I'm friendly with. And thanks to Kelly White in the chat for sending this my way to check out. So that thing is really cool. I forgot blade steel on this, but wait, do I have it? Is that the N690? Yeah, so N690 was the blade steel on that. So
N690.
Yeah.
That's similar to like BT10, I think.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm not big on steel, but I've gotten a chance to check out some cool South African customs.
Right.
And they're just
Beautiful.
some of the customs coming out of South Africa, just
yeah.
Ridiculous.
Well, some of our friends, I'm sure you remember Tony.
Yeah, Tony.
And Charles, they have some South African blades that are just unbelievable for what they're getting.
Oh yeah, like they sent this to me, and this thing is just beautiful. It is. Let me see. I got all the cards here. A skinning, deboning N690 from DBLs is the designer of that knife, the maker. But yep, really cool stuff, man. And it's just, yeah. Thanks for dropping that link, Kelly. We got to support our friend Aldo over there at Pickled Steel. I'm hoping to hear back about my gargoyle here in the next week or two. They saw a design that one of my designs of a fixed blade, and he reached out to me and he was like, "Hey, what would you think of me turning that into a folder?" And I'm like, "If you want to turn that into a folder, yeah, go ahead." And we worked out a deal. So the South African knife company is going to be maybe producing one of my designs into a folder.
There's some makers that are just incredible.
Yeah, the stuff that I've seen out of South Africa is like just next level stuff. Like,
well, even like oh crap, I can't think of his name now. Dragon Forge.
Yeah,
his daggers and buoys and stuff are just they're next level. Like I can't even wrap my head around it.
You can't, and if you can't wrap your head around it, I'm never gonna get. I have a hard time wrapping my head around the stuff you do, let alone what I'm doing.
What I'm doing is just order of operation. It's really like it's really that simple.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of simple. I just love a nice little simple. I don't need to go crazy with swedges and all the other stuff that you could put on a blade. There's nothing wrong with like compound grinds and all those things. There's very, very cool looking, but
and that's where I started, was very simple, very utilitarian. And then my big thing is to make cool, crazy stuff that actually works, because there's a lot of guys that just make crazy stuff and it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
And I'm utilitarian first and foremost.
Yep. It's got to function.
Yeah, it's got to cut good. Like that's
there's that.
Right, it's cut good.
But it also, for me, because a lot of people say, they say good things about my handles and stuff, but that's because if you get a knife in your hand, I want that to be comfortable.
Yeah.
If it's not comfortable, you're not going to use it.
Yeah.
You're not going to want to pick it up.
It's no good in the safe.
You want it in your hand, and you want it to almost feel like it was meant for your hand. And so you could just make a cut, do whatever you need to do. But that's how I feel when I'm shaping a handle.
Yeah.
And that's kind of, I'm always holding it, because when I get it in my hand, that's so important that I want it to just.
That's honestly what I'm doing nonstop. Like even just talking to you with knives I've already done, I'm sitting here feeling of them, making sure there's no hot spots. Even though I've already done it 10 times now, I'm still checking everything and making sure I'm not forgetting something.
Yeah, I'll just sit there and hold it and be like, okay, that's cool. Hey, Donnie Bless Knives. I don't know if you know Bless Knives, Evan. Donnie's doing some killer folders. He makes custom fixed blades too, but he's knocking out some really cool custom folders. low-key stuff. So talking folders,
He
do
needs to
you
give me
have
a
anything?
so I can follow him back because I haven't heard of him yet.
Donnie Bless Knives. Yeah, he does some really killer stuff. So Donnie, this is Evan Martin with E. Martin Knives on Instagram. But do you have any folders you can show off?
I don't have anything on hand. I got maybe like 15 of them like in the process for Blade Show.
Yeah, everybody's in the process. Blade Show.
I realized I do have one. This is one I made a while back, and you probably remember seeing this one.
Oh yeah, I do remember seeing that one. That one's so killer.
This
on.
one, so our buddy Tony, who I met before, sent it back to me. There was a few little things, like you remember we all passed this a knife around, right?
Yeah,
like,
I remember.
Knife. A few weeks later, he messaged me. He's like, "Hey, I noticed something wrong with this knife," and I'm like, "Okay, what's going on?" It was little things like the backspacer was a little angle on the backspacer. He didn't like the clip, which I don't blame him on that. Remember how much trouble I had trying to get that clip to work?
Yeah, I remember. And Donnie says the same thing. His worst thing that he does is clips. He hates doing clips.
Oh God, I hate clips. Kind of foolproof, but I still hate clips.
Yes.
I prefer the one piece machine clips over the like the bent clips.
Yeah.
It just looks much better.
He does it too. Yeah, he does them too. He makes his own clips.
But this is the I call it the Quark. This is a lefty, actually.
Well, yeah, it's because Tony's a lefty.
Yeah, Tony's wrong-handed.
Yeah.
Tony, if you see this, you're wrong-handed. So,
yes.
And they're Charles and Tony run the lefty group, and they run
on Facebook. On Facebook, right?
Yeah, where we all kind of became friends. But that's the same Nitro V core steel, Dion steel Kumai that I showed her. But I love this shape. It's funky.
Yeah, it's a fun shape. I like it. And that handle, the curved down handle, makes sense.
Yeah, it's just weird enough.
Yeah, no, it's cool. I can see Tony liking that too.
Well, he loves Spawn knives.
Yeah.
And it's right in his wheelhouse.
Yep, that is totally in his wheelhouse. I think it's cool. I was gonna pull up your Instagram to show that off because I know there's some pictures on there.
There's a lot of folders on Instagram. I just don't have 90% of them are just like started right now.
Yeah, so there's some. There was a multiple picture post up here. Like this one. Like that's one.
Yeah.
That's one. I love the shape of that one. That one's killer. That one. See, I love how you do the opening hole on your dates, man. And that one got me. That one hasn't me scratching my head, Evan.
Yeah.
That one, how in the world are you getting those holes in that blade?
Drill bits and files, brother.
Really?
So when we Gator show, it was a pretty slow show for me and Macho Blades, Eddie. And I'm sitting there, and I've got bad ADHD. I was diagnosed ADHD when I was like 8 years old.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there, and some dude walks by with like a T-Rex skull shirt on his, like T-Rex T-shirt.
Okay.
And I'm like, I looked at Eddie. I'm like, that would make a cool like knife profile. And he's like, that's stupid.
No, that's totally what that knife is.
So I pull out my iPad, and I literally like Google T-Rex skulls, and I put, because I like designing in Procreate, so I bring in a picture of a T-Rex skull into Procreate, and I just start drawing. And I show it to him, and he's like, "That'll never work."
No.
Bet.
I love the shape of that thing.
So that's what we call it, Dead Rexy. Instead of Dead, we call it Dead Rexy. And even on the inside of that, the backspacer, I engraved with the laser. I engraved a mini, oh crap, I can't think of his name now. The actor that was in Jurassic Park.
Which one? The
one that says like.
Why am I blanking on his name right now? Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
He was in
The Fly.
The Marvel movies that.
Somebody in the chat help us out, because both of us are blanking.
Up in the planet, like the garbage planet, and this guy's the ruler of.
He was in The Fly. God, there's so many names. Why am I blanking on his name? He talks in a certain cadence. Goldblum. Jeff Goldblum. There you go. Thanks, Joseph. You nailed it.
Yeah, Jeff Goldblum. So there's little Jeff Goldblum like laying on the Jeep, after he's injured in Jurassic Park, and it says "Life finds a way" on the backspacer.
That's awesome. Yeah, because you
blows that knife. It's a T-Rex skull.
Yeah, I can see now that you said it. I'll pull it back up. Now that you said it, look at that total. And then you have the scales on the handle. It's a total T-Rex skull. I love that shape. That shape 100% works. I am a huge fan of that shape. That's a killer shape.
It's just like funny enough and just out there enough to make it work.
Absolutely. Yeah, that is I love that shape. I know I have a knife sitting around here that has something similar to that, just because I love that. Hey, look. See? Yep. It kind of has that shape to it. It's similar.
Yeah.
It's similar. That's so crazy.
Where I'm like, I just let the ADHD run. Just let the brain cells just fry themselves out.
So those holes are all done with drill a hole and files.
And files and sandpaper. Yep. I don't have any special equipment whatsoever.
No, I can attest the lasers are the only special equipment that you have. And that comes in mind, like what your inspirations to your design is. You talked about dinosaurs and some other things. I know you mentioned to me about the science aspect of kind of your drawing inspiration from. So I know you wanted to talk about that. So let's get into it.
So that's, I'm a huge science nerd. I love space. Like my logo is a patriotic symbol.
It's a periodic table symbol, basically.
Yeah. And so it's just kind of a riff on that. So I have the EM and then knives under it. And then up at the top, which is very hard to see on a blade, I have the area code I grew up in, which is 601.
Okay. That's smart. See, I love that kind of stuff.
Which is funny. At Blade Show, I had a lady come up to me and go like, 601 is not a periodic symbol. I'm like, I know that. I didn't pull it out of my head. Like there's a reason behind it. She was, the ADHD, the autism, like just, she was stuck on it, and I'm like, listen, like it's okay.
It's okay.
It's a callback to something else.
She didn't get it. That's funny.
Which,
Yeah, I'm a big fan of hidden designs and hidden meanings with symbolism. With even my logo, it's all about symbolism
yeah,
and everything else. So
my my original logo was just my name. You know, like Evan Martin, Brandon, Mississippi. When I grew up before I moved here.
which most people do.
Yeah, and it's great, and it lets you know who I am and where I'm from if you're trying to like Google search me and everything. But I wanted something a little more interesting from that, and then I started with a shield and a knife, and that worked great for a while. But honestly, I changed it because of the laser I had wasn't able to get all the detail that I wanted.
Yeah.
And Tony, of all people, the guy that owns this knife, which Tony, you need to come pick your knife up.
I saw him at the Gator show. I saw Tony.
Well, I was supposed to bring it to him then.
Oh, no wonder.
I ended up not being able to go. But he was the one that suggested the periodic symbol, and from that I kind of ran to it.
I love it. It's cool. Now that you've explained it to me, it totally makes sense. Like I thought, okay, maybe that's part of it, but now that I see it, yeah, that's totally makes sense.
Well, my folder models are all named after different, either like quark. This was a quark, which is a particle that they've discovered in the Hadron Collider, or they're different moons from different planets or different universes, or not universes, but different solar systems, different galaxies and things. I pull names from any kind of science related things.
Yeah.
A mad scientist. Yes, very much.
Yes. A mad scientist. Yes.
I feel like a lot of what I do is a lot of what we do is science, even though we don't really feel like it's science to us.
No.
Until you don't. Which, in a couple weeks I'm moving to STEM, and like we talked about earlier, and
that's gonna be fun.
And I told my principal, I'm like, yeah, I want the fire alarm going off. I want the custodians in there having to clean up after every, period. Yeah. And the tech guy's like, please don't do that. Like, no, you can't fog machine. I'm sorry.
And that's the problem. And one of the reasons I had to I removed myself from the education side of things. I used to have so much fun, and they started to make it not fun for me anymore. And then I started trying to find different avenues for make a living, and I can only imagine like now, because that was, God knows, that was a long time ago when I finally said peace. But it's gotten so much worse, even though I've always hung around the education system and kind of know what's going on. But that's STEM should be fun.
Yeah.
STEM should be hands-on. STEM should be dirty. STEM should be, you have to bring the joy back into learning.
Especially in the primary, you should be just grasping their attention, like making it where it's fun, and they go into middle school and high school thinking it's going to be fun.
Yeah.
Not like it's not about learning at this point. It's about grasping their attention.
Yeah. Because
so much what we do in science and engineering.
Everything. It's in everything. It's in everything. And that's why STEM is so important, because it's you're giving them a problem that they have to try to solve. Basically, you can come at it that direction, but then they have to use all the other things that they're learning in school to try to solve that problem.
Mm-hmm.
They have to read. They have to do research. They have to think. They have to and they have to come up with all these other things. They have to do math, and they have to come up with science, and they're using everything to solve this problem, and they don't know it. You're tricking them into learning.
Exactly.
I was in charge of a 21st century grant program, and we were going into F schools that in low economic areas,
Title I
schools, all F schools, and we were doing project-based learning, which basically was, we need to have a problem. Here's the problem. You guys need to try to solve it. And we were just tricking them into learning. Mm-hmm. One of the teachers that we worked with, we all made hovercrafts, or the kids, that group, I'll say,
right,
like fourth graders, they made hovercrafts out of a round tabletop, a leaf blower, and shower curtain.
Yeah.
And they actually could sit on the tabletop, turn the leaf blower on. It would lift them up off the ground, and literally somebody just kind of gave them a little shove, and they would just go gliding across the cafeteria floor. These kids got so much more out of that activity than probably they did the rest of the school year.
And that's going to lead to them, hopefully, sparking that interest and keeping that spark alive to the point where they can actually create something that will better all of us in the future. At least
and that's where we've lost. Because I know when I went to school and I was in elementary school, we were allowed to be somewhat creative. Mm-hmm. And I do remember standardized testing, but not to the point where it is now. So
no, it's horrible now.
It's just, yeah. And I don't want to get off on that tangent because I could sit there and do that all the time.
No, absolutely. But even like last Friday, we had an author come and talk to our students. So they talked to 5th, 4th, and 3rd. Or 3rd and 2nd, I'm sorry, were together. And then 4th and 3rd were by themselves. The 3rd and 2nd graders were just like unbelievably just dialed in, hanging on every word this author said.
Of course.
And the 4th and 5th graders were just like they couldn't wait for it to be over. And I'm like, what have we done from 3rd grade to 4th and 5th to make them go, this sucks?
Yep.
Like we've lost them at that point.
Yep. Absolutely. And it's so sad to sit back and watch.
Yeah.
And that's why I got out when I did, because I saw them just ripping the joy out of it. As a PE teacher, they started to be like, you need to start incorporating more literacy into your daily plans. And I was just kind of like, what? I didn't go to college and get a degree to teach literacy.
Yep.
I'm a physical education teacher. So I don't know. But we can you don't want me to get into that.
I don't want to spend 3 hours on that.
I do not want to get down that rabbit hole, because I'm much happier where I am now, because my wife is still involved with education in some way, shape, or form. And I still see it, and I still shake my head and just.
Luckily, there's a few of us that are willing to risk our careers on that.
Yeah. But I think it's awesome, STEM. And then you were telling me backstage before we started an idea, and I would share your idea with the drilling of the holes, because it is such a useful thing.
A lot of these kids have never seen any metallurgy. They don't even know that exists. So I would like to take a piece of blade steel, or a high carbon steel that I could heat treat, drill a hole in it in front of them, heat treat it. And when I told the math and science coach and the principal this, they go, you can't have an open flame. And I'm like, no worries, I'll make an induction heater. They're like, you can do that? I'm like, Yep. I'm like, and then I'll heat treat the blade, and then I'll take the same drill bit and try and drill a hole in it, and ask them, why do you think this happened? And obviously, knife makers, we understand it, but and from there, I would like to take a carbide drill bit and be like, okay, now I can drill a hole in it again. Look at that. Just so they understand, like, not all metal works this way.
Not all metal. And then there's different metals. So that was, you could have a high carbon steel. How does it change if it's a stainless steel or a weldable steel that's non-hardable? How did that change?
Or even doing, saltwater tests on different steels.
That would be fun.
Now, what's interesting is I have an entire second grade class that is absolutely obsessed with. So I have a titanium ring, and I anodize it different colors every week. And I have an entire second grade class that's like, "What color's your ring this week?"
That's awesome.
What color do you want it to be? So each week I change it, I pick a student. I'm like, what color ring should I wear tomorrow? And they, like, when I walk into the cafeteria, because I have lunch duty, like 4 or 5 of them run up to me each day, pick your class. They're like, what color's your ring? What color's your ring? How did you change it? So I've already grasped their attention on how titanium works.
Yep.
You can even change colors of metal.
Yep. That would be cool because you could do that. What other steels? You could do that with aluminum?
Yeah, it's to a point.
And you could do, but titanium is the one where you could just go.
Yeah, it's just easy. Aluminum actually need, from what I understand, you need like a dye.
Oh, okay.
Actually spray a material on it to make it change colors.
But titanium, so what do you need? What do you need? You need baking soda, water, a power supply.
Look, you need a power supply and an anode and a cathode, which your ring is your cathode, or your piece of titanium you're wanting to color is a cathode. And you need an anode, which is your kind of sacrificial piece of metal.
Yep.
Titanium. And basically, you just need the water wet enough. So you need some sort of chemical in it to make it conduct electricity well enough to change the color.
What baking soda works for that?
I use TSP, which is a commercial soap, basically.
Okay. TSP. That's
basically
cool.
Need something to make it conduct electricity faster.
Yep. And so you could change it. So because I have a titanium ring and I've thought about playing with it, but so it's really that easy. So if you do blue, and then you can dial in a different voltage, and it turns it into a different color.
Yep. And what's cool about titanium is you can't go backwards. So once you go high enough, you can't go backwards. So I can for the max range, but then I can dip it in at a lower amperage, voltage, change color. But if I go to a lower voltage and then change it to a higher voltage, it can change color again.
Can you bring it back down once you
remove the oxide from it then?
Okay.
I can go back and buff it and then go to a lower voltage.
Gotcha.
So if you wanted to do a multicolor, you could put something to resist the voltage. So like fingernail polish or enamel paint pen.
Yeah.
and then you can do the low color, and you can put the resist on it, and then you can do the high color, or you can put the resist on it, do the high color, and then go back and do the low color.
Yeah. Like 1931 Leatherworks, you can, but you have to strip the anode to go backwards.
Right.
Yeah. Yep. TSP is trisodium phosphate.
Yep.
That's it. What? See?
Which is something you can get in a hardware store.
Yeah. Everybody likes like the anodizing stuff because the big thing is like knife modding. So if you have a titanium knife, you can turn it all kind of different colors. So
yep,
it's cool.
It's a lot of fun. I think this week I'm going to do like the lightning strike with where you heat it up and you dip it like pure ferric, and it kind of gets like different colored lightning strike pattern.
Yeah,
just to throw.
Cool. You'll blow their mind. You'll blow their mind doing that.
But 100% Monday morning is the first thing they're going to ask me when I see them. Like I get a hug, and then I get, "What color's your ring?"
See,
and I'm like, I've already got their attention.
That's awesome because you have them where you want them. I use baking soda in my electrolyte solution, and I use a titanium anode.
TSP. You can thank Alan for that one.
Alan, yeah, Alan's full of different tricks. I need to get over there. He's out of West Coast.
He's Space Coast. He's Melbourne, Palm Bay, not far from us.
Yeah, that's not too terribly. That's an hour.
We need to just get a day set and just go over there.
Yeah, I'm so bad. My weekends are always so packed up full that it's so hard for me to get away.
I get it. Yesterday we went blueberry picking, strawberry picking. My parents are here from Mississippi. Like, it's just next weekend it's going to be fishing club with school and all kind of stuff. Like it's so hard to do anything.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy. And I always got something, and then these guys all keep me busy with making new stuff. So how are you working kind of your business right now as far as the knives? Are you taking custom orders, or you're just kind of making and selling right now?
Yeah, I've never stopped taking custom orders. Like, I worked for 8 years full time. When I moved to Florida, I got a job, just like a retail job working at Gander Mountain selling guns. And it was really just to get to the point where I could be full-time knife making. And I was full-time for about 8 years, and then the economy changed, and my kids' insurance changed, and it got to the point where I had to have a full-time job just to make it make sense.
It gets tough.
Yeah. And, that way the kids had, health insurance and all that stuff. My wife's a teacher too. We work at the same school. The kids go to school with us. Like
that's awesome.
It's awesome because we're all there together, and we can all, I can literally look in from PE and look into the classroom and see my son.
Exactly.
Which I got the whole class in trouble the other day. So it's a funny story because I pushed into the special needs classes, the self-contained classes.
Yeah.
I love my self-contained kids. Like
they're awesome.
They're not your typical kids, but there's just they love differently than anybody else. Kids with Down syndrome, autism, they show love such a different way, and it's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. Agreed.
And I love working with those kids. So, but anyway, I'm coming from those classes because every other day I have to go into 2 different classes, and I'm walking by my son's class, And the teacher walks out, which the teacher's a good friend of ours, been friends of ours for years. And one of the one-on-one paras and the student walk in, so I'm able to slip into the classroom. And my son sees me, and normally I go in to check on him and see how everybody's doing. And he sees me, he runs up to me, and he tries to body bump me. So I grab him, and I'm holding him in the middle of the classroom by his feet. I flip him over and hold him by his feet, and the whole class erupts in laughter. And now they all start coming towards me, and they're all talking, carrying on. So I put him down, and he tries to kick me as I put him down. So I grab a shoe, pull him off of him, and throw him across the room. Not something you should be doing in a public school by any means.
No, probably not.
So
it's your kid.
Yeah. So about that point, so I'm kind of tucked into a little cove in the doorway, and the interpreter, who's a friend of mine, is in the office, and he comes out and he starts screaming at the kids "No, what are you doing? You can't get up, this and that." And the one-on-ones across the room, she goes, "It was Coach Martin. It was Coach Martin." And I'm hiding at this point. And he goes, "Dude, really?" And I peek my head around, I look at him and smile. He's like, "Get out of here."
Yeah.
Walk out of the room, teacher's coming back, and I go, "I got the whole class in trouble. Good luck."
Yeah. Sorry. I was funny story before we move on. I was banned from our cafeteria when I was teaching. I put everything I had into my teaching. I was 2006 Teacher of the Year at the elementary school for which I was the PE teacher at.
Right.
And that it's not easy as a PE teacher to get Teacher of the Year.
No.
But, I was able to get Teacher of the Year, but I was banned from the cafeteria because every time I would walk into the cafeteria, even it would be nice and quiet, and all the paras would be in there with the kids, and they'd be quiet. And as soon as I walked in, Mr. Albert, the kids would go crazy, especially the kindergarten first graders. Oh,
mm-hmm.
So they were like, "You're not allowed to walk in here anymore. You need to walk around." And I'm like, "But the cafeteria was right next to where my area was." I was like, "I got to get through here." And they're like, "Nope, you need to walk around. You're not allowed in here anymore."
Well, that's what when I go to the ESE classes, I have to walk around the whole school to avoid the cafeteria. Because if I walk through there with a cart full of, beach balls and frisbees and all the ESE stuff that the other kids don't get to play with, they all just run at me. Why don't we get to do that?
They don't get to stop.
Do the whole loop around the school to avoid that.
Yeah. But yeah, so you're still doing the custom stuff.
Yep.
How, if somebody wanted to get onto get a custom order, what's the best way for them to reach out to you?
Just message me on Instagram, and we can start chit-chatting from there.
Okay.
A lot of times people tell me their ideas, and it just kind of snowballs into something cool.
Yeah. I mean, do you have certain models to pick from, or they're just kind of you share pictures of stuff?
For the most part, yeah. I mean, I have kind of some generic models we go from, but honestly, I like the off the wall stuff. I like to design something completely different each time.
That's awesome. So it's kind of like collaborative design.
Exactly. And a lot of times people are like, "I like this, but I want this," and I'm like, "What would be cool?" and I show them pictures, or I change something, and they're like, "I like that better. Let's go with that."
That's awesome. And then, and I know that you are preparing for Blade Show, and you're going to have a table at Blade Show as well.
Yep.
I think Donnie Bless Knives, who was in here earlier, he's going to have a table at Blade Show as well. As well as Corey Holly, who I've had on here. He's out of Tampa, Riverview, Tampa area, Florida. Great knife maker as well. He'll be set up there as well. So
Awesome. I need
yeah.
the table. That way I can check them out.
Yeah, hopefully you can get away and check him out. Donnie said that he might reach out to you. He had to take off, but he said he might reach out to you. If I can remember, I can share his page with you as well on Instagram.
Sure.
But yeah, he's doing he does his designs. He does something called the Ripley. But he does some really cool stuff, and he's very minimal equipment, kind of like you. He's got just very minimal. It does everything with his hands, does everything with his hands.
Well, I kind of feel bad saying I do minimal stuff, or when I got like 6 drill presses behind me.
Yeah, I know. I laughed because I was like, I wonder if they all work or they're all set up to do something.
Well, they're all different stuff, and then I have a surface grinder here, a surface grinder in the grinding room.
Yeah. Oh, you got a new surface grinder in there, or you just had your grinder?
I have a surface grinder and grinder in the grinding room.
Okay.
Surface grinder behind me as well.
Yeah, that's the because
Right
you have your 2x72 in the grinding room, and then that big old hunkin' laser. But that laser is really not for the blades. That's for
the big one is my wife's laser.
Her wood cutouts.
But I have a small fiber laser that I do logos and stuff, which I wanted to kind of talk about that.
Talk about it.
I do a lot of, like, my folders, I hand draw them, because the way Alan taught me to design was very much, using just a simple circle template.
Yeah.
And a nice pencil. And literally I can design a folder with that circle template.
Yeah. That's somebody showed me that as well. It's just basically connecting some circles on the pivot. You start there and then you work your way out.
It's very simple. Once you design the lock, the pivot and the lock, it's every knife's the same at that point. It's just design work.
Yeah.
It completely, once you have the pivot and the lock and the stop pin, it's pretty much all ornamental from there.
Yeah. And that's what I've been told. But
from what I've done is taken the paper drawing. Now that's a piece of vellum where I draw, like, part of the design process is using some vellum to copy stuff and then check the close and the open. From there, I'll actually take a picture of it, send it to my iPad, and trace it in a program called Procreate.
Yeah.
And then I'll send it to my Lightburn, which is my laser program, and I'll resize it from there. And then I'll make patterns. So, like, this is a knife on now.
So you're making the wood patterns from the laser.
I'm making a wood pattern, and I'm able to check, make sure everything works right.
That's awesome.
Resize it and make, however many different sizes I want out of it. And then from there, I will, give me 1 second.
Yeah, no worries. That's so cool. So this laser, guys, is huge. It's one of the big lasers.
So then I will actually take it. So now I have it working.
Yeah.
Size-wise, like I like it and everything works. I'll take it over to the fiber laser and actually engrave everything onto the steel and the titanium. And then I have a profile to grind to.
That's awesome. So the marks on that blade, I should probably have you enlarged. That's all from the laser.
Yep, I engraved the profile onto the steel into the titanium, and then I cut and grind to there. Now from there, it's pretty much all handwork. But
Well, yeah. Once you get that part, and then the only thing that I've seen it being done is the lock bar and cutting their groove in the lock bar,
yeah,
and that's just slowly but surely getting that straight, right?
yep, and that's all done. The way Alan taught me to do it was with a cross slide vise on a drill press, and I use a. Let me see if I can find it. I use basically just a Dremel cutoff wheel.
Yeah, that's what I've seen done. Just
And
back and forth slowly.
Yeah, I mean it takes a couple bits, or it takes a couple discs, but they're kind of one of those things where you expect to go through them.
Yeah, it's a abrasion like anything else.
Yeah, and you'll wear them out. You'll wear 2 or 3 of them out. Cutting a folder, but compared to buying a blade or a rotary blade for a mill or something, it's no question.
Yeah, you're talking a mill. That's a 100% different thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've seen it. I think I've seen our buddy Donnie do it that way, where he's just like slowly but surely going back and forth on the disc that's set up on a drill press. Basically, he doesn't have 6 of them, but
yeah, I mean and I have them set up for different things. I have a drill press for the tap screw or the tap bit. I have one for the through bit. I have one for the countersink, and then I have one that's just kind of a general, everything else. And I have one that's just set up to do the locks.
Yeah, it's all about saving time, so you're not having to reset things and do. Once you have it set, then you're like, okay, I don't have to touch this. I can just go and work.
Exactly. Like with handle screws and stuff, I can run the tap bit through everything, and then I can go with the handle material. I can go through the through bit, where I can pass the screws through, and then the countersink on handle material or frame locks or whatever it may be.
Yeah. And I've been there. It's been a little bit, but your drill presses aren't like crazy drill presses. They're just regular drill press, right?
Cheap Harbor Press drill presses.
Yeah.
I only bought like one of them. Rest of them were, well, I say I only bought one of them. Our friend Gerdak, when he stopped making knives, he ended up giving me like 3 or 4 of them, and then I acquired another one. And
yeah, that works. I think I need another one.
it does hurt.
Just drilling holes is always something I've always struggled with. Just can't drill a hole to save my life. I don't know why. Yep. I have full carbide drill bits, and I don't know. I think there might be something wrong with my drill press or something, but I don't know. I'm very tempted to just buy another one and see if I get any better with it.
And I've spent hours and hours setting these up where they're perfect and aligned, and I still feel like I'm doing something wrong.
Yeah, I don't feel like, I feel like it's wobbly, it's not straight, which causes me to have a really hard time getting through the steel where it just wobbles a lot.
Well, and what's bad is when you order a whole new set of like 12 drill bits and you drill 2 or 3 holes and you try and tap them, and the taps just go right through it, and you're like, and then you measure them and you're like, crap, this is like 5 thousandths thicker than it's supposed to be. And I just spent like $20 on these drill bits, and they're all the wrong size.
They're all the wrong size. Oh no. Yeah, I've spent so much money just on drill bits, just trying to figure that part out.
Mm-hmm.
Getting titanium coated carbide drill bits, and
Yeah.
it's just like, and still stripping them out, and where they just don't cut anymore.
It's
Just like-
sad. Sounds like the cheapest, like just regular old drill bits from
Yeah,
MSC or McMaster Car,
yeah,
like
that's
the
what
plain black oxide, high carbon. They tend to work the best.
that's so funny because I don't know. It's crazy, and I'm not drilling into hardened steel either. Because I do all the holes and everything before heat treating, so I don't know. It's I struggle. Like I said, I probably need a new drill press, which I might end up getting.
Well, and what's funny to me, and I might be letting a little bit of a secret go here. Give me a second. Let me.
I love secrets. I don't mind secret.
A dirty secret.
Oh,
So, CPM 154, titanium, carbon fiber, titanium screws, space age materials.
Yep.
All together by a little bit of cheap brass plug.
Ain't nothing wrong with that.
I literally drill like an 1/8 hole.
Yeah.
And pin a brass plug in there and then drill and tap that. And that's what holds everything together.
That's funny.
But it's all,
but it works.
Stuff, and it's all held together by a piece of cheap brass.
Yeah, well, I'm sure production companies are doing worse. So as long as it works and it functions.
But the good thing about that is if it strips out or
it's easy to drill out and to replace.
I can drill it out real quick and replace it.
Yep, that brass, easy to drill out and easy to replace.
Easy to tap, like it. I can tap it with my eyes closed.
Very, very good. That's awesome. So, what is the future looking like for you with the knife business? Is that you hoping to get to do it full time again, or you're just loving where you're at?
I really enjoy teaching. I would like to go back to full time, just because I have so many ideas bouncing around in my head. At this point, honestly, I don't know.
Yeah,
I enjoy being able to make without worrying about making money at it.
there you go.
It's a good part, or it's a good point to be, because my creativity run and not have to worry about paying the bills.
Yeah, and you can have fun doing it.
Yeah. I'm kind of at that point. Did I make more money making knives full time? Probably. But it was so inconsistent. And with the economy's changed in the last couple of years, it became harder and harder to, what we do is a luxury. It's a luxury product.
Absolutely.
If we were strictly business, it's a luxury product. And it became harder and harder to make a living at it. Now I have an ability to make a living at it without, worrying, but I don't get to have the creativity day in and day out that I would like. But when I'm able to,
I mean, because that's my enjoyment.
I'm fresher.
Yeah, that's my enjoyment. Is I get to get out, get some creative juices going, come up with something fun, or if I'm doing a custom order, then they working with whoever that is, they get to drive me to do something that maybe I would never have tried to do before.
Mm-hmm.
And work with a material that I wouldn't have or something, and then I get to try to figure it out. And that's where I get my enjoyment, is solving that puzzle and
Yeah.
being able to figure it all out
Well,
to create something different.
I just happened to see something and I picked it up because when it comes to like scrap pieces of metal that I don't have to worry about, I get to like get creative with it. So
Hold on, let me make you big.
this is a piece of Damasteel that I made a chef's knife out of, and there was just enough there to make a blade, but it was a hidden tang. So I kind of
Bolted it in right there.
so this is a G10
Spacer.
with titanium liners and then marbled carbon fiber and titanium screws.
That's awesome. That's awesome. But the blade stops like maybe past that first pin.
What's that? Yeah, the titanium stops about right here. I mean, the blade still stops. So I just kind of like, it was one of those things where I'd had it sitting around for years, literally years, maybe 5 years.
Wow.
I got to do something with this. Or I
That's
just
awesome.
the garbage. And I'm like, that's $40 worth of Damasteel. I can't just throw it in the garbage.
Yeah. No, you don't know.
So I
Awesome.
just playing with it until I figure something out. Like I don't know how many drawings I had of it. It was just letting that creative process run and coming up with something I've never done before.
Yeah. I I have the kind of the same story. I mean, I have done all kinds of different little things, and I had this. I can't show it to you because I don't have any, but I had this weird shaped piece of steel, and it was skinny up here, and it kind of came up big at the top, and it was just a cutoff from me cutting a blade out of it, doing stock removal, and it almost looked like a hatchet or an axe of some kind, but it was like, this big, and I was like, so let me play with that, and I created something called a packet. I called it a package hatchet. The blade was like that big. You've seen them? Have you? I don't know if you saw them on my Instagram, but and I went ahead and I've made a couple of them. These guys in the chat all started going crazy over package hatchets, and I'm selling. I've made about 11, 12 of them now. And everybody loves them. They're carrying them as neck knives and everything else. And I'm like, oh.
And now steel just for those.
Yeah. And what I did was I bought a 1-inch piece of steel just for those. So I could just cut out. I don't have to do that. And I was like, you don't understand. I'm only making those when I have just that off-cut weird shape, and I turned it into something.
So I used to make these, they were like 6-inch total length Quakens, like a Tonto tipped Quaken.
Yeah.
And I call them scrappies. Literally
awesome.
Scrap steel.
Yep.
From, you get a 1.5-inch wide bar, and then you get an order for like an inch wide EDC.
Yep.
So you got this like 1/2-inch wide piece of steel that's 6 inches long.
Yep.
And I'm like, well, I gotta do something. I can't just waste it.
Yep. I made a couple of these. They're like a little dog tag pry, like a little pry bar and a bottle opener. I don't know what I was doing with them. I made 2 of them, and because I have like little squares of steel, and I'm like, well, I'll do something fun. And so I made a couple of those and heat treated it and everything else. But I think this is, I don't remember, 1080, 1084, one of the carbon steels I played with in the very beginning. But yeah, it's like, I don't know. That's the fun thing. Like, I still have a bin of scrap that I'm like, what am I going to do?
I got just buckets of it that I'm like, eventually I'll do something with it.
Yeah, eventually and I keep saying that. And when you have And people are like, yeah, you should just make package hatchets. And I'm like, I made a bunch of them, and like everybody said, like they sold like wildfire. They all sold out real quick. I made, like I said, I made 2 batches of them, and I made like 4 in one, 5 in the other, and they just gone.
Well, I'll do that with like the little prize and stuff. I do it with the scrap titanium, and I'll engrave them, with the laser and anodize them different colors, and
yeah. See,
that,
you can make little pry bars out of titanium and anodize them and everything else if you have a little something like that. Because that's like this whole EDC craze of carrying little EDC gadgets. Pry bars is one of them that people love to be able to have. You make a pry bar bottle opener combination.
Sorry, I want to grab something.
You're good.
So we're talking about the little the Quakens and stuff.
Yeah. See,
one of them.
Look at that.
And that's just titanium handles that are engraved.
Oh man, come on. That's ridiculous.
It's a scrap piece of metal that I made into a Quaken, put some titanium handles on it, and just threw it in the laser.
And it would sell like in a heartbeat, probably.
Nobody's so now.
Nobody see people that needs to get out there. Yeah, you've seen them, and I'm sure they'll sell, Gabe. That is for sure.
Well, it should be ready at Blade.
There you go, Blade Show. He'll have some of them. That's awesome.
I'll have 4 of them at Blade, probably.
Yeah. Do you ever think? I know we talked earlier. I was showing off my my Kubi Bloom. Well, it'd be help if I was on camera first. My Kubi Bloom, and I know you had talked about maybe trying to do production. Is that something that you would think about doing?
Eventually, I would love to find the right partner to do it with. I don't want to sacrifice too much of my creative process to do it.
Yeah.
I know a lot of guys that have gone to production, or not production, but like, designing for manufacturers. And that's definitely something I'm looking forward to. And I've talked to a few people, and I really haven't pursued it because I'm worried about losing that creative process.
Yeah. And
but it's one of those things where I feel like it's the next step, but I keep waiting on the right partner.
Yeah, it's tough because you don't know if they're the right partner until they are or they're not.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's your first design with somebody, then you don't, like when I approached Kubi with this, I had sent this to a lot of the other big brands. I won't mention who they all are, but I shopped it around and nobody wanted it. Everybody either I didn't hear back or they were like, thank you, we'll contact you. We're not really doing anything with those right now.
Well, it's hard to get your foot in the door with a small fixed blade. Yeah,
absolutely. With folders, absolutely, probably there's more chance of getting your foot in the door with a folder, and they'll work with you a little bit more on a folder design if you're collaborating than with a fixed blade.
Well, it's, not to speak out of turn as far as what other people have done, but like with Alan Foltz, the Minimalist was one of those things where, like, that's the oddity.
Oh, absolutely.
That he was able to get his foot in the door with a small fixed blade.
And it blew up.
That is absolutely just unheard of. Like, it doesn't happen.
No.
But he
is definitely a unicorn.
That's their number one selling CRKT's number one selling blade, if I'm not mistaken. I could very well be wrong with that, but I believe it is their number one design.
And you can find it everywhere.
Oh yeah, Home Depot.
Home Depot, Walmart,
Everywhere.
You can find them everywhere. So it's cool. And that's my, like I told you, and I've shared it many times, that was my gateway into EDC fixed blades. I started carrying a minimalist. I have one right up here. And that's where I was like, oh yeah, this totally makes sense. Carrying a little small fixed blade, and that caught me into designing my own. And that's what made me make fixed blades, was that.
100%. Like that's, I'm looking for the ones that are around the shop right now. There's one.
Yeah, you got the cleaver.
He gave me a production model. He gave me, but I have a custom around here. Oh, there it is. That's the custom.
That's awesome. None for now. White Mountain Knives definitely will have the blooms as soon as they get into the States.
Awesome.
Yeah. Let me see that one again. I'm sorry.
This one?
Yeah, that custom. See, you guys.
Yeah. I don't remember what he calls it now. I think it's but it's the katana tip or tanto tip kind of katanamalist, I think is what they call it.
Katanamalist.
And that's one of those things where I'm like, man, I really like one day I would love to have one of your customs.
Yeah.
Sweet. The original.
The original. That's the one. So
and he was like, which one do you want? I'm like, dude, I don't have the money for that right now. He's like, shut up. Tell me which one you want. He's like, just pay me back. Like, make me a knife one day.
And that's totally how he talks. Shut up. Let me get you one.
Yeah. And he's like, it would be easier for me to just throw this one in with the batch than to wait for you to be ready. And I'm like, no, it doesn't work that way. He's like, what color do you want?
That doesn't surprise me with him. Yeah, super cool guy. So it was funny because that's what got me into really carrying of EDC fixed blades and then getting into making. And then, so when I was at your barbecue, the last thing I expected was to be sitting next to him.
Chris. Like two hitters.
It was just too much. It was too much for my brain to handle. But
well, and the way that all came about was, we've had these in the past, and I did. Me and Big Chris both did Blade Sports.
Yeah,
and me and him were talking at Blade Show, and sorry, air compressor keeps going off.
Yeah, I know.
At Blade Show, me and him were talking, and he was like, "Yeah, I'll be down that way, in a couple of weeks or whatever." His daughter has a volleyball tournament. I'm like, "Well, cool. We normally do like little and this and that." I'm like, "We plan it right. I'll plan it for the time."
Wait for the compressor.
Well, did you catch all that?
No, the compressor drowned it out.
Oh, I'm sorry. So me and him were talking at Blade, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm going to be down in Orlando for my daughter's softball tournament or volleyball tournament." I'm like, "Cool. Maybe we can plan a get together around that time because I do it from time to time." He's like, "That sounds good to me." So I asked him what time it was. So that's why I planned it when I did, was that way he was in town.
Yeah.
And I think everybody enjoyed that.
Yeah, that was a good time. I certainly enjoyed it. It's always fun for me to get around and chat with other knife people, like-minded people. That's why I told you that Chris War Room EDC, who's in the chat, he lives in Lakeland, and me and him have been chatty. He comes over, hangs out while I'm making knives for live streams and stuff. And we're trying to put together that kind of social gathering of sorts for anybody in the Central Florida area who's willing to make the drive to Central Florida here, Winter Garden area. I know people in Ocala, on the coast, both coasts, Lakeland. There's you in St. Cloud. You're probably the closest person besides anybody in Lakeland. I know St. Cloud's closer than Lakeland, but just a couple hours, hang out, talk knives, bring something if you want, but everybody just get together and hang out. That's all that it's about. Maybe we'll get a couple pizzas and hang out in a cool setting. So I'm trying to get some people together. I need to pick a date. It'll be late fall, probably November, December sometime, where the weather is actually a little bit better here in Florida to be hanging out. But just a little. Hey, I feel it. I've been there. I've done it. But yeah, so we're looking forward to it. I got to get a date. When I do, you will definitely have an invitation to go there.
Oh, absolutely. I'll be there. Like, I think when we did it was what, July or something, August?
Yeah, it was pretty hot, but it ended up working out just fine.
It was like we had enough fans going.
Yeah, no, it was good. It was fun. Like I said, when we start pulling out knives and start talking, it's all a good time. Yeah.
It's fine as long as we don't let Eric cut himself again.
Yeah, that was bad.
He was gonna put it out.
He was almost there, man. He was almost there. I saw him at the Gator show too, and I almost stopped him and been like, "Hey, man, how's that finger?" Because he got himself pretty good. So, guys, just so you know, Evan was working on a knife. There were some issues with it or something, and they had it out, and this guy cut himself pretty bad on it.
And we thought he was gonna pass out for sure.
Yeah. He lost a lot of blood. He ended up going. Did he end up going to get stitches in it?
No, he didn't. We once we got it like super glued enough, he kind of toughed it out for a couple of days and he was okay. But he probably should have gone and got stitches. He did something stupid and he paid for it.
Yeah. I wasn't over there when it happened, but I heard it when it did.
Well, it was one of those things where I was like, so what happened was, I think a customer had some purchasing regret, and sent it back saying there was all these problems. And when I got the knife, the problems weren't there.
Yeah, of course.
And so I asked Eric, like, this guy says there's some problems with his knife. Can you figure out what it was? And he didn't engage it fully and tried to, like, but he basically tried to see if the lock would fail, but the lock hadn't fully engaged.
Oh, no.
He closed the knife on his finger pretty bad.
Oh.
I had to jump into EMT mode. And
yeah, I noticed I saw EMT mode in full effect over there, but I was like, oh, no. So that's not good. Yeah, that's crazy.
That was where he knows he screwed up and he admitted to it. But we got him squared away where he was.
Yeah, you did, but I know that he was ready to go after that.
Yeah, he was pretty embarrassed a little, but yeah, it had
knives you get cut.
I can't say anything. I almost cut my thumb off trying to hold a piece of wood that was already in a vise while I on it, and almost cut the end of my thumb off.
Yeah.
Why I need to stabilize it when it was in a vise, I don't know, but I tried to.
That's you live and learn, right? And you won't make that mistake ever again. All right, Evan, this was fun. We're going on after 10 o'clock. And is there anything else you want to share with everybody, either in the stream or watching this afterwards? But me and you definitely need to get together again. That was fun.
Anytime, brother.
Yeah.
I can't think of anything. I mean, the only thing I didn't really cover is my new. I've been working on a slip joint.
Oh, people are into the slip joints right now. Check that out. That's cool.
I mean, it's a long ways from being complete, but
That's a nice half stop, nice walk and talk on it, I guess they say.
so that's really the only thing I haven't covered. I mean, most everything.
Awesome. Any ideas on handle scales for that yet?
I'm crazy. Well, this is 1/8" titanium, so it's just going to be titanium scales.
Full titanium? Okay.
Other than knives.
You're doing kitchen stuff now?
I've always done them.
Hopefully that's not sharpened.
No, not yet. This is for
that.
For a husband.
Jeez.
Barbecue guy, but it's a 12".
That's a sushi monster right there.
It was a lot of fun. I like doing the kitchen knives, but that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
A lot of cutting.
Yeah. Thank you so much for jumping in and doing this with me. That was fun. I knew it would be. We haven't been able to really chat like this in quite a while. And it's always good.
We message back and forth, but we've seen each other. And
yeah. Hey, look, life happens. You got a lot going on. I got a lot going on. But
it's crazy to 20 from each other. But
yeah, we're not very far.
But it takes an hour to. If you're trying to get to Orlando from Orlando, it takes at least an hour. So
yeah, you. Yes, I will agree, and we'll just leave it at that. But absolutely. So thank you so much, and this was really cool. And I just want to thank everybody, guys. Thank you so much for joining us on this. I hope you enjoyed it. Check out E. Martin Knives on Instagram, and if you're interested in a custom fixie or a folder, hit him up. He'll definitely hook you guys up with some amazing quality product. But I just want to thank you guys, and always remember, if you like it, please subscribe, leave a comment, or not. Again, the choice is always yours. Have a good one, guys. We'll see you on the next one. Later.